I am happy to announce the 10th annual Butch Ward Scholarship Bass Fishing Tournament that is being held at the Fish and Games Club on Big Slack on the Upper Potomac River. The event is Sunday, October 26th, and blast off is at 7:30 a.m. It is $115 per boat. You can fish with a partner or by yourself, and the event is going to go until 3:30 p.m. Big Slack on the Upper Potomac River is a scenic impoundment in Western Maryland, and it's one of the few places in Maryland you can safely operate a fiberglass bass boat without any motor restrictions. But fair warning, Big Slack is no Bass Pro Shop aquarium or stocked bass pond. This is a tough fishery that's going to challenge the best anglers. But if you can catch them here, it'll make the Ohio River or New Jersey look like Lake Gunnersville. For more information, link in the episode description down below. See you there. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Fishing the DMV. I'm your host, Thomas Ahrens, and today I am joined by Jonathan Caesar, who has an interesting story to tell from the latest BFL on the old James River. Sir, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. I'd rather we connected under different situations, but hopefully this will be a learning experience for all, right? Yeah,
it's been spicy to say the least, especially with the new BFL rules that may or may not go into effect. And this situation that you're going to be talking about doesn't help. So keeping a little bit of mystery involved for the audience. But why don't you just walk us through just what happened and go for it?
Okay, so a little background here. I've been fishing. Well, I have the FLW hat here, as you see, but I still call it that on accident. I don't think they like that, but I've been fishing with the organization. My first event was back in like 2005. Might be dating myself here, but I had only fished 2 tournaments in my life. I fished a club tournament, just a local club. Then I fished a BFL on the James, and then I went to the Potomac to fish what was considered now a Toyota. And I was a non-boater. I'd never been to the Potomac. I caught the biggest bass in the entire event, 614 out of like 400 some odd anglers. It was mobbed. It might have been 450 or more anglers, and came in the top 10. So basically from the third tournament of any kind ever. So essentially from there I was, got the bug for fishing. Didn't always have time with work and stuff like that, but I fished the James River a lot, so I know a lot about it. For this year, I would consider that maybe home waters. I really wanted to make the All-American again. The first time I tried was 2 years ago, and I made it on the Potomac. Last year, the regional was kind of a disaster at Kerr. We can talk about that later. But this year, I really want to make it. I'm there to make it. I'm not. It is fun to go fishing. I like fishing. It's a little bit kind of business to me, even though I am a co-angler a lot of times. I'm a boater too. So one thing I want to preface this with is a lot of boaters will say that age-old excuse, if you don't like it, just go get your own boat. I have my own boat, okay? I can go buy any boat I want. I can buy any truck I want. That's not the issue. A lot of us don't have the time to practice. For me, it's physical. I was in a bad car wreck several years ago. So there's other factors, why we're a co-angler, okay? And I really don't like hauling a boat up and down the road. It's not my favorite thing. I don't like looking around and seeing every, third person on their phone while they're driving 80 miles an hour. So it freaks me out a little bit. But with this, obviously with a regional, that for this year, it was 2 divisions rather than the 3 or 4 from previous years. The top 3 boaters, the top 3 co-anglers make it to the All-American. I practiced on Tuesday out of my own boat. I did really well. And I knew kind of just in case I had a boater that was in trouble. A lot of boaters I've helped get limits quickly or help get checks or et cetera. So if anyone were to ask me anything, I would know a few things. Weather completely changed for this event. After day 1, I was sitting in 25th place, which is I'm within striking distance. I have to be in the top 3. So my mentality is, with as tough as it is and maybe getting tougher the next day, I thought I needed about 9 to 10 pounds to make the All-American. So that was my goal. So you have to fish accordingly too. You have to, in your mind, you've got to set your mind a certain way that involves certain lures, certain choices. A lot of people will say go for their limit first. There's, different ways of thinking. If you're trying to make it or win, maybe that's out the window a little bit. But so anyways, I'm in 25th place, but I'm not too far out of really being able to get there if I have a solid bag. And all those people who did well the first day, we don't know if they're going to get paired with someone in 0 the second day, right? You have no clue. So this never happened. I never heard from my boater the night before the second day. And I found out why the second day. And I told him I was going to bed really early. I had no sleep the night before. So I crashed. That rarely happens. Usually I'm not a good sleeper before a tournament. I crashed early, like 8 something, unheard of. So I missed this call, and we talked the next morning, and he's like, just letting you know, it's going to be 3 of us on a boat. And I said, you got to be kidding me. And he goes, it's going to be my nephew, and then, you, obviously. And I was hot, man. I was pissed. There were some choice words. So I said, give me the tournament director's phone number. So he gives me his number, and I wasn't the nicest, but at the same time, I know the guy's stressed out, right? Mm-hmm. My whole thing with this is in business and everything else, and I own businesses, is I'm all about communication. So the tournament director never called me. Mm-hmm. In my mind, anyone on that boat, co-angler, boat or whatever, the tournament director should reach out to them personally. I don't care what time it is, and let them know what's going on. So in business too, you have to pivot quickly. So I mentioned several things right away to the tournament director. Right away. I said, first off, why don't you, if there's 5 boaters who left, which by the way, guys, no boater should leave. Just stick it out and do it. If you had a bad first day, use the next day as a learning experience. It's not going to cost you that much. Your room's probably already paid for. You're not getting that money back. The co-angler's giving you gas money the next day. Don't do that. Just, I mean, I can understand if your boat broke and you can prove it to the tournament director, not just say it, prove it to them. That's a different thing. But don't just leave. That's chicken shit, honestly. And it puts everyone in a bad situation.
And just for people to really hit this home, because there are some lovely people of certain intelligence online. The nephew was in the tournament, correct? Because I know that's a comment that's going to happen. Okay.
Yeah, and this boater was awesome, and his nephew was cool as can be. Okay. These guys were awesome. We turned a mess into a fun day. But as I'll explain, it didn't mean that it was the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. So quickly I pivoted and I said, hey, look, I've got a boat. Let me be a boater. I'll take a co-angler. I only get 3 fish. I'm going to be late, so I'm at a disadvantage. Okay. I had 1 little practice day, which is not going to fare well for what I need to do. Let me just take a boat and I'll take a co-angler. I can only keep 3 fish, not 5. He's like, oh no, you can't do that. And I'm like, well, how is that any different than me taking a boater right to stuff in this situation? I mean, I'm just trying to think of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think quickly. And then I'm like, why don't you take the guys who have 0 and take the first 5 who want to go home and tell them that you will comp them their first tournament next year. And I guarantee you 20 people will call you. And then everybody's happy. First 5 go home. Get your entry fee next year. We're not taking money out of the tournament. We'll comp it next year. If they raise their hand and say, I want to go, no harm, no foul, right? Makes perfect sense. I don't know why this is a problem. You just gotta think your way through these. And then, so I'm just throwing these things out there. I'm like, well, can a boater take me? Can a friend take me out? And I tell him where to go. Not someone not in the tournament, not fishing, just driving the boat. He can drive my boat. Not if they've been on the water within a week. I'm thinking of things. This is at like 6 a.m. The tournament's starting in an hour or 5:30 in the morning. This is all happening at like 5:15, 5:30. Okay, I still haven't even left my house because I don't even know if I'm going to partake in this whole thing. I'm so pissed. So you want your mind right. So I start driving to the tournament and I'm trying to calm down. And I get there and there's tons of fog. So there's a fog delay. Boater was chill. He and his nephew were there. I said, all right, well, I just got to try to scatter and figure out. I didn't even have the right tackle bag. I had a bigger one. I had nothing ready. I had 9 rods or something ready to go. I had to quickly adjust to 5 rods, grab some tackle and like threw it in a plastic bag and just threw it in the boat and my food and stuff. So this all happened in the morning. Well, we ended up having a 2-hour fog delay or longer. You know, we go out there and fish, and a little bit of this is my fault. So I don't want to put this all in terms of making the All-American. There's things you have to do on the James River when there's no wind, when it's hot, when a front passes, when it's bright sun, and I didn't do it quick enough. I waited about, for some reason, 80, 90 minutes to do it. When I did it the way I was supposed to, it worked. Had I done it when I first got there, this could be a whole different story. But it still doesn't change the fact of, you know, we couldn't run around. He even asked me, he's like, are there some places you want to go when the tide changed? I said, I'd love to go to some places. I know where there's good fish. We can't do it like this. It's not safe. It's just not safe. There's not 3 seats in a boat. You know, we even hit a barge wake or a big, you know, tanker wake going down. And if we were going full speed, the guy in the middle would have been killed. He would have been ejected and killed, or his head would have hit the motor and killed him. So, you know, we just stayed put, and I ended up catching a pretty good bag. But ironically, the guy that was in the middle, so I was in the way back of the boat. The boater was on the front. They would not allow the other co-anglers to stand on the front deck. They made him stand in the middle of the boat. Makes no sense.
How does that work?
I don't understand.
Is that like a rule? Like you have to stand in the middle?
No, and I asked the tournament director, tell me the rules. Show me the rules. I still can't find the rules of where 3 people can be on a boat. If someone out there can find it, great. He couldn't cite a rule to me. So towards the end, when the tide changed, I caught a big one. And then he was helping me call another fish, and he left his line out, the other co-angler, and caught his best one. His best fish. His line literally was sitting in the water, and the fish bit. So he's like, man, I wish you had caught that fish. You probably would have made the All-American. Might have, you know what I mean? But the whole thing is, with 3 people on a boat, you can't get casts off right. You can't. I mean, I could do what I was doing, but when that tide comes up and that water pushes back, you need to be able to throw certain baits, you know, different frogs and buzz toads. I couldn't do any of that. There was no way. I couldn't skip anything back. I had no room to do it. So we were all handicapped. But we had a good time. We were laughing. You know, we were making the most we could out of it. As it stood, that fish might have got me in that he caught. Or if I came in 11th, but I was only like a pound and a half away from making it, from being the 3rd place guy. So I was still pissed. Yeah, I got a check. Yeah, I did well. Yeah, I made the most of the situation. But the boater and the co-angler were like, dude, if you were in here by yourself with the boater, you probably would have made the All-American.
What do you think should have happened? Hindsight being 2020 and all, what do you think FLW should have done?
I think they should have done any of those things I mentioned. Any of those things I mentioned, I came up with in 5 minutes. What is wrong with anything I mentioned? Like, who's to say what they say, putting 3 people on a boat is right if it's not even in the rules? What's wrong with what I say if I'm paying to be there? I'm not saying I'm better than them, but everything I mentioned was safer, right? This comes down to safety. Let's face it, Major League Fishing kind of has a lawsuit on their hand already with, 3 deaths and 2 injuries right now? Okay? And I mentioned that to the guy at their headquarters. He didn't even want to talk about it, but that's the reality of it. But, it was weird. I also find it a little coincidental that the boater was paired with his nephew and then me being a local. That way, if I wanted to back out, I was local. And we were in a bigger, it seems strange. The whole thing seems strange. But there were boaters who left that morning. They didn't want to have 2 co-anglers. They're like, I'm out of here. So there's a constant shuffling, whereas you could have solved the problem the night before just by saying, if any co-angler wants to leave, I'll comp your first tournament next year. The first 5 who reach out to me, I'll send you home.
Who makes the final decision? Just really reiterate it. Who made the final decision on doing this?
There's a tournament director, and he gave me the number of his boss. I'm not going to throw names out there, but I ended up talking to that. And so he didn't try to duck me, okay? But I talked to him and mentioned a lot of these things too. He didn't, and then I come to find out afterwards, guess what happened? I saw a video, someone in the Illini division left, and they gave him his full money back for the tournament. It's on YouTube. That was never offered to anyone. When I mentioned it to the guy at the headquarters, he had no idea what I was talking about. So it's on YouTube. Guy's not lying. So, I mean, I think everything I mentioned was perfectly rational and made sense. And above all, I mean, again, the number one thing is safety. I've been in a boat accident on the James River. I could have been killed. I wasn't the driver. I was the non-boater. In a Bass Open years ago, that was me. My vest didn't deploy. I skipped across the water like a rock, probably at least 80 to 100 yards. Pretty scary. I had no life vest. A lot of guys would have drowned. Yeah, I could have been killed. So I don't know why they would want to just invite that sort of issue. So
yeah, it's very corporate, and they don't make a lot of, I don't know. Some decisions don't make any sense. Other decisions just seem so very corporate, where everyone just nodded yes. That's brilliant, even though it's a probably a lackluster response, especially having you on with the new drop that happened, which is BFLs. They're limiting forward facing sonar to 3 hours. That's all the information we have, and Mega 360 as well.
Okay, yeah. So exactly. Okay, so first off, why would you drop that info when you haven't gotten over the drama of, and again, this is not an attack on Major League Fishing. I don't want it to be that. This is not an attack on boaters. We all have to work together to make this industry better. I feel like fishing is going the way of the government and people in this country, where it's just like headbutting. Guys, we don't need that. This has got to be a unified front, okay? But I would not announce anything about front sonar or BFLs until I cleared out this whole mess of having 2 co-anglers on a boat, let that die down, figure out some rational approaches to that, and then tackle the next thing. But yeah, I mean, I had a full discussion with one of the headquarters people. I'm not going to name names, but I outlined everything like I told that tournament director, and they thought I was nuts that they should comp people. I'm like, I have businesses. I have to comp people sometimes. If you're too cheap to comp about $500 worth of a regional to make everything pay over, you shouldn't even be in business. I'm not trying to be rude, but that's all you're looking at. And again, you're just trying to appease people. Ultimately, we can't have these boaters leaving early, but what do? If we penalize them and say, oh, well, you can't fish the next season, then Major League Fishing is out all that money, and they got a sore loser, someone who's angry. But that's been a problem, okay, for several years now, where the boaters just leave on day 2. I'm just saying, boaters, don't do that. If it's a true family emergency or your boat is broken and you can prove it to the director, that's one thing. But don't just leave because you had a bad day. If you're going to have to fish that body of water again, make it a practice day, is all I'm saying. I think that's fair. I think everybody would agree with me.
It's hard because we're in 2025, and there's some things I do think are antiquated, like some of the co-angler rules and stuff and the drawing. And there's friction because how expensive things are getting. What is the future of a co-angler versus a boater? And there's so many solo tours, and people are like, well, if I have to spend this amount of money and everything's equal, I can just go this route. And I feel like some of the rules that they put in place creates more drama and friction between boaters and co-anglers. And it's this weird idea of who needs who more. And with this new rule that they put in, if the boaters just leave, what are you going to do? Because you need the boaters to have the co-anglers. It's such a weird chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah, it is. And but it's tricky because you don't want to penalize people where they never come back. But at the same time, you can't give them leeway or a crutch to do what they're doing, because then other people do it. That's not right either. What I'm saying as a boater, you're already there. You already spent your hotel money. You're not getting that back, or your Airbnb money. What is the problem with waking up the next day and going to fish for 8 hours and learning something new or something about yourself or meeting a new friend? You know, I've met a lot of good friends, me being a co-angler. I have a lot of friends on the Elite Series, BPT, all that I met from being a co-angler. Matt Pangrack, who hosts Bass Talk Live, as you know, is a good friend of mine, you know. And I've helped a lot of these guys too. You know, I've either helped them land fish where you weren't allowed to have nets, like in the opens, or, you know, shown them things on the James or what have you. So I've never had a big conflicting issue with a boater. I've met a lot of good friends. And most of the boaters will tell you that. And they'll tell me that in the boat. They're like, you're a great co-angler. Now, I don't throw the lure over the guy's shoulder and stuff like that, you know? So I'm not acting like a moron. So, you know, and I give him gas money. I'm not stiffing him. And I'm not, you know, I don't have 20 rods all hanging out so that it's slowing him down. There's none of that. So you got to be a good co-angler too. There is some etiquette. Maybe we need to have a class on that, which I'm happy to teach. But, you know, you got to stay out of your boater's way and help him when he needs it. But, you know, that thing that they came out with that rule, it's a little bit strange, because what are those 3 hours?
Yeah.
So, you know, we don't have periods like in BPT. So the only way I can think of that's fair is let them use the front sonar units, if it's going to be split, from 9 to 12. That way in the morning they can get where they want to go. 9 to 12. If you're running from 9 to 12, that's on you. If you want to use that unit, 9 to 12 is your time to use it. That's it. That way I don't have to police a boater.
Yeah.
I don't have to look up there and see what he's doing, right? He can shut it off or whatever he does. I don't use front sonar on my boat. I'm old school. You know, I fish a lot of tidal water. I don't need it. I mean, my idea of a depth finder is sticking the tip of my rod in the water. It's just weird.
And again, it is just weird because let's say down the rabbit hole, they are expecting you as a co-angler to judge your boater. Well, we just talked about, and we're just using them as an example, not saying that, but a nephew was drawn as a co-angler for a boater. Yeah. Are we saying in all 24 divisions, 4+ tournaments, there will never be an issue of maybe a co-angler being drawn with a buddy, and that wouldn't create an issue on that? Like, it just feels like, speaking of a company that's opened themselves up to a lawsuit, I feel like they just opened themselves up to even more drama.
Well, but also, Thomas, keep in mind, you could have that happen now, and you could go in a boat somewhere you're not supposed to be.
Yeah, true.
You could go back at boats in the ponds where you're not supposed to be if you're with a buddy. So it's some of this. I don't know if they would bring in polygraph people. That I had to do a polygraph this year for a tournament we won on the Potomac. They work. Let me tell you that. But there is a cost to that. So I don't have a massive problem with front sonar just because I'm mostly in tidal rivers, but it was used last year in the regional. I was with the guy on day 2, and it was miserable. Mm-hmm. I wanted to jump off the boat, go get my car, and go home. It was the worst experience I've ever had. And every time the guy went shallow, I caught fish, and he'd go right back out to where I couldn't reach the bank. I can understand 1,000% for co-anglers who have to deal with that. I would never do it. I wouldn't fish. Now, that's why you're seeing numbers. You guys can go back and look at BFL rosters from old tournaments compared to now, post, live sonar and all that. They were way bigger. There were BFLs a few years ago on like Toledo Bend and Gunnersville that had over 300 boats. And this year they didn't even get 100 boats.
How much of that also, and I brought this up on the Basscast and other live streams, we try to use forward-facing sonar as a political football, and that if we eliminate that, we'll have peace in the Middle East. The Cowboys will win the Super Bowl because kayak fishing is exploding. We're probably on the precipice of another recession. Inflation, I mean, they just Kitech just came out. They raised their prices by I think it was 20 to 30%. Reducing forward-facing sonar doesn't get rid of inflation on the soft plastics. It doesn't bring down the prices. And I even said that, let's say we do next year, we ban it completely and the co-anglers don't come back. Well, then what is another problem potentially that caused it?
Well, I think, by the way, the tackle is going to go up again next month, just so you guys know.
Delightful.
So you may want to stock up. Reels and everything. I talked to a guy down at Dance's here. It just is what it is. We're ripping off a 50-year Band-Aid in this country of the abuse of the way this economy's been run. But that's a whole nother story. But I think people still buy tackle, okay? They may not go buy 5 colors of a lure, but I think they'll buy the 1 or 2 that work. And I don't know about you, I don't lose a lot of tackle. This whole thing that you have to buy 20 crank, how much tackle do you really lose in a year? I don't lose a lot. My reels are older, they're fine. My rods are older, they're fine. I think, gas has been coming down, which helps. You just got to be a little more creative. Pack your food instead of buy your food. Just things like that. I mean, you got to just think a little bit. So I don't know if that's it, but I mean, fishing is an expensive sport. There's no doubt about it. I think if the fuel were cheaper, which it's been going down, that would help tremendously. My fear in this is a boater who, not a co-angler, but a boater who left because of front sonar a few years ago. Will he come back, or has he turned his interest to his kids' sports, hunting, golf, whatever? Is he just like, I just don't want the drama, That's what I fear more than the co-angler. Because a lot of these events still have too many co-anglers and not enough boaters. But we live in a sort of a jaded, you and I live in a jaded view of this whole thing because we're near tidal water, where the fishing's better, don't need front sonar. We have some of the biggest BFL participation because of
Shenandoah and Piedmont.
But if you go to the Midwest, it's scary. When I was at the All-American a couple years ago, everybody was asking me if I was signing up for some BFL event that was like a week or 2 later. They were like 40 some odd co-anglers short. And I don't live in Tennessee. And that All-American was so putrid, I don't ever want to fish there again. But that's how few co-anglers they have, because they don't want to sit out in the middle of the lake. And I kind of was like, that must suck. But then when I did it at Kerr Reservoir in the regional last year, it was so much tension. I was so pissed off the whole day that I was like, I will never do this again. Never, ever do this again. Ever.
So if they did ban forward facing sonar completely, let's just say, because I do think the rule's kind of dumb and hard to enforce. It would have been easier, I think, from a corporate perspective, just to say, just F it, just ban it. It's cut and dry at that point. But anyway, let's go down this rabbit hole for a minute. If you ban it, the 2 options are: door number 1, everything rights itself, co-anglers come back, it works out good. Door number 2, if co-anglers don't come back and the boaters maintain the same, what potentially else could be an issue that's driving them off? I heard one person say it's like, well, they just quit fishing. And I don't believe that. I don't believe that, okay, because your boater had forward facing sonar, you're just going to sell all your tackle and quit. So I'm assuming they're still anglers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're not, okay, I never hear one person complain about the one bass system where it's a team. Never. Everybody loves it. Obviously, they don't want to do that. They have their reasons. I totally get it. I've been fishing in these events for 20 years. Okay. So I've seen it all. There was never all this divisiveness. Yes, you could get backboated, quote unquote. Getting backboated in 10 feet of water where you can cast to a foot of water is not the same as getting backboated in 45, 50 feet of water where you have nothing to throw at. That's the problem right there. That is the problem right there. For decades, people got backboated. Even when the pros were paired back in the 80s and 90s, they made it work. There's still stuff to throw at. I got backboated. There's still stuff to throw at. When you're out in the middle and on this, it's awful. It's not fun. But I don't think the co-anglers would go anywhere. I think if you got rid of it and had 150 boats, there'd be 150 co-anglers. It's a sticky situation. I think looking back, had they known it would cause this many problems, they would have never allowed front sonar to start with.
Which is interesting because they retroactively went back and banned Mega 360, which is like, it's not live view. So why did that get lumped in? Which just feels like it's very reactionary by them.
It is, but hardly any people even have 360 anymore. So that's the other issue.
Yeah. So why ban it?
It's right. It's strange. But
Yeah.
But if you're going to come out with such a conclusive, hey, it's 3 hours, and that you better have your ducks in a row. It's these 3 hours, and this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to police it. Don't just say it, because then you open up for all these interpretations and issues and things like that. But I can totally get where a boater would be frustrated if he's learned to fish that way, and he's good at it, and he's invested the money and the time. I totally understand where the boater's coming from, 1,000%. I'm not saying I hate front sonar and I hate boaters. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, as a co-angler, it is a miserable thing to be out in the middle of a lake with nothing to cast at. That's all I'm saying.
Do you think kayaking has anything to do with the drop in co-anglers? Talking to the guys that run like TourneyX and the other tournament apps, there are more and more online tournaments every month. And so it seems like there's a rise in catch photo release tournaments while there's a decline in bass boat tournaments. So something doesn't make sense.
Yeah. And you're also seeing more females on that and younger people being able to do it. The other thing about the kayaks, it allows them to do waters that aren't crowded. So it's a better experience. Like I know my girlfriend's cousin she does a lot of those, and she can do like the Shenandoah River and all these places that you can't have a normal bass tournament. And she catches big fish and has a great time. So that's another part of it with the BFLs and some of these things. It's very repetitive.
Okay,
you're going to, and it never seems like people are positive. Have you ever noticed it? It never seems like people are positive about that. It always seems like, oh God, the river's beat up. Here we go again. You know what I'm saying? It's never like people are, it's going to be great fishing. It's always like, man, it's tough and it's not doing well. It's seldom the opposite, which is, I don't want to hear that. I just want to go out and catch fish. So, I feel for the boaters that have to do, let's face it, the boaters don't want their co-angler to be out there catching nothing either. I highly doubt that's the situation. But I just think, I don't know. I've asked a lot of boaters. I said, well, how did you catch fish 10, 15 years ago? What was wrong with that? Just do that. You know what I mean? But I mean, everything evolves over time. And we know who the players are that are really good at front sonar, and they make a lot of money off of it.
Yeah, and it's frustrating because the co-angler needs the boater, and the boaters now have so many options out there, like local tour wise, where, I mean, again, I think ever since COVID, there's an explosion in just solo tournament organizations where you can just go out by yourself. And this is where I think Major League Fishing does have an issue. It's like, cool, if you piss off the co-angler, you in theory could still run a tournament solo with a boater, but if the boaters leave, you're kind of done. Like how can you have a tournament without boaters?
Well, you do see in a lot of divisions, hate to say it, where a boater who signs up later pays for the co-angler, pays for him. Not the most ideal thing. I think their participation would increase, maybe not necessarily front sonar for everything, but if their regionals were free again, like they used to be, I think that would draw a crowd. But people don't realize there's a lot of tournaments out there, team series tournaments and things like that, like in Texas and places like that have been decimated since live sonar came out and got really popular. I mean, these are team tournaments like Elite 70 and things like that were at that level or bigger, 150 boats. Mm-hmm. They're down to like 25, 30 boats because the same guys win every time. And they just don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And it happens in Texas, and you're seeing a lot more trails now where they're not allowing front sonar. They're going to take it away.
And it'll be interesting with those data points to see if it actually increases the membership, because people have made that comparison with the tournament that just happened on Gunnersville. It's like, you don't need scope to have draw. And it's like, okay, but just to make sure the argument is apples to apples, that was for like $500 million. Like I will fish naked if I have like guaranteed money. So I think it needs to be a proper comparison. Because again, I do think money cures a lot of headaches. If the number one thing to save the BFLs is if Boyd just cut a check and just jacked up the purses, and that would definitely help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's still, like you said, it takes two to tango.
Yeah.
I really don't care if a boater doesn't have a co-angler. I could care less.
That's the dumb rule too. Can we?
I don't care. It doesn't, I mean, guy's going to cheat, he's going to cheat, you know? And how are you going to cheat on the fly? How are you magically going to cheat on the fly? So let's say we take the regional, it's a 2-day event, and you had a co-angler on day 1, and day 2 you didn't as a boater. What are you going to magically do to cheat? The only thing really is with culling your fish, with culling dead fish. That's the biggest way I see people could get an upper hand or cheat. That's the only way really that I see.
Well, and what you need to do, because again, like people don't know, there's an antiquated rule with BFLs where, let's say you don't have enough co-anglers, too many boaters signed up, you have to do a draw format. You're not allowed to just go out by yourself. And what a lot of organizations do that do solo tournaments is you have to have a camera running 24, like while you're going, just to check in case something happens. But the retort to that is, well, a lot of older individuals don't know how to use a GoPro, which I'm getting a little frustrated with that as a cop-out when we're upset with the technology of the younger people, but we have to spoon feed the elderly. Like they don't know how to make a phone work, but it's like, it's 2025 for God's sakes. Like at some point, meet me halfway here.
But here's the thing, Thomas. I've been on some tournaments on the Potomac. Your GoPro is going to end up in the lake in those waves and rough weather and rain and wind and stuff like that. It's almost pointless to even have it. So all this stuff is very, I don't know. I just don't like the combative nature. I guess I'm just a chill dude, you know, and I enjoy fishing for what it is, and I appreciate it. And I'm grateful for it just to be able to be out there. I don't think everyone has that mentality all the time. But at the same point, I'm going to look at it and say, not a guarantee that I would have made the All-American, but a strong probability that I would have made the All-American if it was just me and that boater. But that being said, we still had a great time. We laughed, we cut up, we had a good time, but I didn't know that little bit amount of weight would get me in either. But the tougher the tournament, I had like the 5th biggest bag of all the co-anglers on day 2. But, you know, just that tougher it is, sort of the better I do times type thing. But, and not that I'm any kind of professional fisherman by any means. I'm not, you know, like most of the guys you have on are really good at it. I do what I can, you know. But, yeah, I'm just confident I could have made it. But it is what it is. And maybe this story will help people. But I just, it's funny, once you get on the boat with the boater and you're there and the sun's coming up and everything, it's all about fishing, right? All the hoopla is before and after and drama and stuff like that. Once you're on that boat and it's just you against the fish and nature, it all seems to calm down and be a pretty good time. But yeah, I would like to see it get back to where it was, you know, when I started. You know, it was a much different industry.
Yeah, dude. I like to see that too. And we'll going forward, we'll see. I think the more they try to split the baby and appease everybody, they're going to appease nobody. And everyone hates to hear it, but you just need 2 leagues. You need the one that allows it, the one that doesn't, a National American League, and just let people go where they want to go. And it's this, again, we know why they're trying to split the baby. They want that sweet money from the electronics organizations. But if you could just make 2 separate leagues, just 2, not 3, 4, 5, just 2, I think that would, I don't know, hopefully that would fix it. Or maybe there'd still be complaining because each side would want to take over the other. But maybe this is just what it is going forward.
There's been complaining since the dawn of time. It had no social media before. Okay. The other thing that I never understand when people talk about the electronics companies and it costs this and that. Before there was front sonar, there was the other units. Everybody bought new units every year anyways. Everybody was buying units anyways. So what is the magical difference? A live sonar might cost a little bit more. A lot of guys are using the same one 3-4 years now, okay? But everybody and every boat when they sold all had new units anyways. So they were still making, what is this magic thing that they just all of a sudden make different amounts of money because it's live scope as compared to the other sonars that were out there? I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Everybody I knew who was way up there was buying new units every year of some kind.
And that is the one fallacy argument I have, is like, well, it's too expensive. It's like technology by its nature gets cheaper over time. Like you can buy the forward facing sonar technology that's 5 years old right now. I mean, China came out with one that's like $200, whatever. So that will eventually, now if you want the best, absolutely 100% agree, it's going to be more expensive. It's a problem, but it will get cheaper. It will come down. Everything comes down in price. Like the quality rods I bought when I was a kid were nowhere near like the mid-level or low-level range rods that you can buy now. Like that's just the nature of capitalism and industry.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know. They say that, and I don't know the exact cost of what a front sonar unit costs. I mean, because I don't have it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little bit old school, but I'm not a boater all the time either. But, again, what I recall when every year, especially pro guys and guys I knew that were really into fishing, they were buying new units every year anyways. They weren't taking the unit from the previous boat and putting it on the new boat, with their structure scan, side scan, whatever. And they had multiple screens and all that. So I just, that argument seems a little weird, that it's somehow magically more money. To me, more money would be going to these electronic companies if there was no front sonar. Everyone had 2D, 3D, whatever you want to call it, D, but you had 150 boats instead of 80 boats. Then you have how many more graphs? Take 70, 80, whatever that number is, times 3 graphs per boat. Well, there's all your money, Mr. Garmin, right there.
But do you want to have that many graphs? Because like that is something where I kind of believe with what both tours did. Like you shouldn't have a 39-inch graph on the front of your boat. Like how the hell do you see? Like,
yeah, that it's for, again, we go back to safety, but it's also, you got someone like Jason Christie that's 6'5" and he can see over his graphs. And then you got one of the Japanese anglers who's 5'3", who the graphs aren't as fit, So there's just a lot to it. But to me, more graphs for more boats equals more money for these electronic companies than the debate over forward-facing sonar costing this. I don't know. It's just it's a mess. Mm-hmm. It doesn't need to be it really doesn't need to be a mess. And I do hear guys saying, oh, I'll just fish other things and to hell with that and whatever. Well, if you want to make the All-American, you either got to do the BFL circuit or the Federation or whatever, but TBF stuff. But I mean, I want to see people do everything they can, right? And you can't get into everything. If you try to get Elite 70, Alpha's great circuit, but it's really hard to get into. They have a long waiting list. So just say, I'm going to fish something else. Well, what does that mean? What is something else? You know what I mean? Bassmaster doesn't have the weekend series like it used to anymore. So it just doesn't, you can't just say that and snap your fingers. You can say it, but it doesn't mean it makes much sense,
You have so many local trails. I mean, Lake Anna Elites, Potomac teams, Battle of the Border. You have the Smith Mountain Lake Tour. You have Angler's Choice used to have stuff. The ABA. If ABA is still around, who knows? They don't pay people, so that won't be around anymore.
Yeah, you got to pay. Yeah. But there is something exciting about the shot to make that All-American. If you've never been to an All-American, I encourage you to fish the BFLs and try to make that All-American. It's a really, really cool thing. Steeped in history. I don't want to see that go away. I want to see all fishing get stronger. Every local tournament, every BFL, everything. I want to see it go way up. So I think it's good for kids. I think it's a healthy sport. I don't know. I just want to see it. I really want to see it back to the way it used to be. I hate hearkening on that, but that's really what I want to see.
Sir, I really appreciate you coming on today and just telling us about everything from the co-angler's perspective and the drama that went down at the James River the past weekend. Is there anything we can give a shout out to, anything to promote?
Well, I'm not some big sponsored guy. I could be. I have my own businesses, but they're not right here in Richmond right now. But I just a little more harmony, a little more peace and harmony, everybody, and don't let a few rules keep you from fishing. Ultimately, we as the fishermen can figure this out. If it's 3 hours of sonar, front sonar use, let's figure it out. These guys have proven they're good enough at fishing without it to fish and win. Just look at this character. Who was it? Tucker Smith? Is that who won this past young guy? They did not allow front sonar in that big event, the Ultimate Angler Championship in Alabama, and it was fine. No complaints. Everybody, it was fine. So I don't know. Let's just not have any gridlock and try to all get along. And the one thing, when I talked to that official at Major League Fishing at the headquarters, is I didn't yell at him.
Yeah.
I offered solutions. Okay. I said, you probably got 50 people calling at you, yelling at you, making your life miserable. I don't want to do that. It's not going to solve anything. These are the solutions I propose right here. Take them to your meeting. They all make sense. Figure out what works, and let's make some changes.
Sir, thank you again so much for joining me. And then, as always, guys, link in the episode description to everything that we talked about. Please let me know in the comment section what you think. I know this is always the most civilized conversation points to be had, but yeah, keep it as civil as possible. If you guys want to, subscribe to the channel, it helps me out in the old algorithm. Also, you want to check me out on Patreon because I'm between jobs and you guys are keeping me from living behind a dumpster at a Walmart. I love you all, and I'll see you guys next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye. You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.